Hello, in this video we'll be seeing some of the aspects of the grade book, and grades are very important when we are trying to evaluate resources which or activities which have been turned in by the students. Earlier we were seeing about resources, the materials which we give to the students. It can be videos, it can be links, it can be a book which you create, or the number of ways by which you can give a resource to students are just about so many. And when you give them resources, sometimes we also like to see whether they are going through the resources, whether they have understood what they wanted, what you wanted them to know, or it can be also making things a little fun. So all of these are possible with Moodle. And most of the times also students like to see where they stand against their peers, and this is the place where probably the grading is really going to come in handy. So moving on, so one of the first things that you need to understand is how to set up this grade book. So the very big thing which Moodle does when you look at the grade book is it takes the burden of tracking a lot of things from your hands and automates a lot of the work, and this results in definitely a lot of time saving, and the results are made available to the students either at the time when you say it is available for them, or it can also be instantaneous. And to see what is the what is a grade is usually at the end of some activity. So the activity can be a quiz, it can be an assignment, it can be a workshop which was peer reviewed, or so on and so forth. And when you look at the when you look at the Moodle's grade book, you can split the grades into various categories and even subcategories. So it can be cat 1, so if I mean, or it as continuous assessment test, or you can call it as quizzes. So you can keep unit wise quizzes as a subcategory under quizzes, and it's honestly left to your imagination. And again, you can set up any criteria for saying that somebody has passed or somebody has failed, and you can take the best of maybe a few different activities which you are giving them. And again, the other good thing is you don't have to have an activity turned in before you start to give in marks. You can create activities on the grade book which are not linked to something which is done on Moodle. For example, if you are evaluating a running race, so you might have asked quiz on what is the length of the track, what is the width of the track, so on and so forth. However, when it actually comes to the running effort, it is not something which you can ask as a quiz, and these are things which are probably put in your grade book, which also need to appear on your grade book. And this can be done by creating a separate what we call as a grade item. So you have two very big things which we do, which helps us to probably help a student understand where they stand. Maybe we make it into different components, or we kind of sub break it. And the other nice feature which I really appreciate and use a lot in Moodle is the way by which you can make a calculation. So it can be average, it can be mean, or if suppose you want to say, look, I want to take a formula where standard deviation and so many other things play, yes, that is also something which you can really do. And the one of the areas where I love to use the gradebook in Moodle is where I give multiple quizzes, and then I say the top so many marks are only going to be taken, or bottom so many grades I am not going to consider. So it takes the pain of having to check which is the best, and then putting an average, checking the calculation. All of those things are definitely not something which we need to do here. And maybe sometimes you may have to scale marks because it has to be entered in as a particular value in probably your student management system or in VTOP. So when that kind of a situation comes, you'll find that the gradebook has features to probably scale, to probably like do whatever way you want a presentation of marks to be done. So there are two things which we speak about. So maybe I just call them as terms. So first we saw what is a grade, and inside it there are two concepts. What is a grade category and what is a grade item? Category breaks up the activities or which the students turns to us into bigger chunks. So it can be assignment, it can be quiz, or something which I also like to do is I put my continuous assessment test also here. So the continuous assessment test is made into an activity with multiple questions under it. So each of the questions can become a grade item because students might not be submitting here in Moodle. And the other important thing is we have what are called as the grade items. So sometimes you may not have an activity which you have planned out in Moodle. So the grade item is also something which Moodle is something which is done very powerfully by Moodle. Now what we do is probably we will take a couple of minutes and see what Moodle actually can do in the grade book department. Now when you log into Moodle, you are probably seeing your dashboard. So typically we advise that you go in for the turn editing on, but in this case we are not going to go for turn editing on. I am going straight to the grade book. So you'll see that there is something called the grade book view. You can see the grades of the students much like in a spreadsheet. So all the students' marks and everything comes. Now here we have not added any what we call as the activity still. So the grade is not appearing. The default category is uncategorized, and you can add categories and subcategories simply by going to the setup. So when you go into setup, you'll see there are two things. One, you can add a grade item. Of course, I'm not going into the outcomes right now. And the other thing is add category. So I am going to add a broad category. I'm going to call it as quizzes. So it's very simple to add a category. I simply add it as quiz, and you can go a little further. So you can say the mean of grades. So whatever is the activity which is grouped under this particular category, you will find that the mean of all the grades can be taken, so on and so forth. You will find that you can even add weights, and and as I was telling you, you can drop a certain number of activities. So please be a little careful. If you are going to have only one activity and you drop it, you can very well understand what's going to happen to the marks. Now the parent category is a very important concept. We were telling that you can have subcategories. So typically what we do is we go in and probably state that so because we don't have any other category, we don't see this. So I'm just calling this as quiz. For the present, I'm just calling this as quiz total. When I'm going to do the custom calculation, you will find that this is going to be this term is again going to come. So now we have created a group, so which we call as a category. Now let us add one more category. I'm going to call this category as assignment, and assignments I'm just putting it in the plural, and again the same thing is happening. Usually I prefer not to have the empty grades, because that means that if a student is missing an assignment, so it will not consider that. So let's say you're giving 8 and a student is missing 6 or missing 2, so only out of 6 his grading itself is going to be done. Now that is not really going to be fair to the others who did more. So if you see here, now a new what you call as a heading comes called the parent category. Now you will find that this is the course name. So under that, do you want to keep this new category, or do you want to make it as a subcategory under quiz? So you can make it like unit 1 and say that it's under the previous one, but here it is just come as assignments. And there are a lot of ways by which you can play around with the grade book. Now please have a look at this. Quiz total has come. I didn't do any modification, so it's just coming as assignment totals, and that can be very quickly rectified. So I mean, this is to edit calculation. I go back to the this one. I go back to the assignment, and we go to category total and give a category name. So usually I prefer to keep it as _t practice, which somehow has stuck on, although there's no need for doing it. and you will find that certain things are now we cannot edit. And if you want to change it, of course you can always make it as a you can just click it. I can make it as a subheading under quiz, so assignment has gone here, or I can again come out. I can still now if you see it is as a subheading, I don't want it as a subheading, so let me just move it out. And if you see a quiz and assignment have now become top level categories. If you go ahead, you can keep some scales like A, B, C, D. You can define outcomes. You can give some letters, like if suppose a student gets more than a certain grade, put him as S grade, A grade, B grade, so on and so forth. You can again import marks. You can export marks. Now I will not go into all those details right now. As of now, let us just understand that whenever a student turns in, we are going to give them grades. We can split the grades into categories, and under that category we can give different activities, and these activities will be aggregated according to the system which we are talking about. And one more thing, preferably please do not ignore empty grades, which we had done earlier. Now I'm just don't exclude empty grades. So although it's very powerful feature, for many of the cases it might not be suitable. It's just a personal thing that why should a student, like for example, a student could have done 6 assignments, and when we are saying we are going to take the mean, the probability that that guy has got lower marks in a few components is very high. On the other hand, if suppose a person just takes 2 and in both of them they've got say much higher marks, so the person who gave 6 assignments or 6 activities to get a particular grade looks like is a loser. So for this reason I don't do this, and I hope that you will be I hope that you've been able to follow what has been done here, because this concept is going to be extended when we start to give the activities. All of the activities will be coming under some grade item or the other. So that's why we went forward to first set up the grade book before we do things after do other things. And you don't really need to start off with the grade book. Sometimes we are not ourselves too sure. You can start off with the activities, and then it is still very easy to move the activities all around. Thanks for watching. In the next video we'll be seeing how we can add some activities. Activities can be quizzes, it can be assignments, it can be quite a lot of things, maybe a workshop. So let's meet up in the next video where we'll be seeing those things. Thanks for joining.